Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into type 1 diabetes, but not just as a medical diagnosis. We're going to look at it as this fascinating and deeply personal story of a body at war with itself.
So, to really get to the heart of this, let's kick things off with a pretty powerful question. What if your body's own defense system, the very thing designed to protect you, actually turned against you? That right there, that's the central conflict in the story of type 1 diabetes.
Okay, so for a lot of people, this whole story kicks off when the body starts sending out a series of, well, pretty confusing warning signs.
You see these symptoms, right? The intense thirst, needing to pee all the time, being absolutely starving and feeling wiped out. They are not random at all. They're all connected. It all starts with too much sugar or glucose building up in the blood. Your body, in a bit of a panic, desperately tries to flush it out, which leads to dehydration and that constant thirst. But at the exact same time, your cells are literally starving for that sugar as fuel, and that's what triggers the overwhelming hunger and fatigue, even as you might be losing weight. It's a real chain reaction.
So the big question is, why? Why is all of this happening? To understand the root cause, we've got to look deeper inside the body, where a huge case of mistaken identity is unfolding within the immune system.
And here is the absolute key. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. The best way to think of it is like friendly fire. The body's security forces, the ones that are meant to attack foreign invaders like viruses, get totally confused and start attacking the body's own valuable, healthy cells.
So here's how that attack actually goes down. It often starts with some kind of trigger, maybe a common virus, in someone who's already genetically predisposed. And this sets off a tragic mistake. The immune system's T cells misidentify the vital insulin-producing beta cells in the pancreas as a threat. The attack isn't sudden either. It happens slowly over months or even years, until so few beta cells are left that the body's insulin production just plummets.
And just to put this into perspective, it's really important to know that type 1 is the less common form. We're talking only about 5 to 10% of all diabetes cases. It's a distinct condition with a unique autoimmune cause that sets it apart.
Okay, so you've got these symptoms, you've got this internal battle raging. How do doctors go from just a suspicion to a definitive answer? Well, doctors use a few key tests to confirm the diagnosis. They measure blood sugar, of course, but the real smoking gun for type 1 is a blood test for autoantibodies, the literal fingerprints of that immune attack. They also check for a substance called C-peptide. See, since it's released right alongside insulin, low levels of C-peptide are a crystal clear sign that the body isn't making its own insulin anymore. Now, here's a fascinating little detail in this journey. Some people, shortly after they're diagnosed, experience what's called the honeymoon phase. What happens is the remaining stressed-out beta cells can temporarily recover and start producing some insulin again. You can imagine this can be a really confusing time, sometimes giving a false sense of hope that things are getting better, and it requires careful adjustments to insulin doses before the phase eventually ends.
A diagnosis? Well, it marks a fundamental shift. Life now involves becoming the active manager of your own body's systems, and it's a new reality that requires daily commitment.
Effective management really rests on 4 essential pillars that all have to work together in harmony. First, replacing the missing insulin. Second, constantly monitoring glucose levels so you know what's happening in real time. And just as critical are diet and exercise. Those are the tools used to help stabilize those levels and support overall health. All 4 are totally interconnected. Let's look a little closer at insulin, because it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all situation. You have what's called basal insulin. Think of this one as the background worker. It's a long-acting insulin that provides a steady, low level of coverage, much like the pancreas would naturally, to control glucose between meals. Then you have bolus insulin. This is your mealtime manager, a rapid-acting dose taken before eating to cover the carbohydrates in that specific meal.
So what's the goal of all this? It's to mimic what a healthy pancreas does naturally, 24/7. The entire strategy is about replicating the body's own dynamic insulin patterns as closely as technology and personal diligence possibly can.
And of course, you can't manage what you don't measure. Monitoring can be a fingerstick test, which gives you a snapshot of your glucose at that exact moment. Or it could be a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, which uses a sensor to give you a constant stream of data, showing you trends and giving alerts. Then there's the HbA1c test, which gives the doctor that crucial big-picture view every few months. This isn't a short-term fix. It's a long-term strategy. Managing type 1 is a lifelong commitment, where being proactive is absolutely the key to staying healthy for years to come.
and that proactive care follows a pretty clear schedule. The goal here is to catch potential long-term complications before they become serious. That's why there are regular eye exams to protect vision, foot exams to check for nerve damage, and kidney tests to ensure they're functioning properly. This consistent monitoring is the best defense against future problems.
And because the root cause is that overactive immune system, people with type 1 diabetes also have a higher risk of developing other autoimmune conditions. The most common are thyroid disease and celiac disease, which is why screening for these is also a key part of comprehensive long-term care.
So, we've seen the body's warning signs, the immune system's mistake, and the daily reality of managing it. But the story doesn't end here. With new therapies like teplizumab, which has been shown to actually delay the onset of type 1 in at-risk individuals, we're entering a whole new era. It leaves us with a hopeful question. What does the future hold not just for preventing type 1, but for redirecting the immune system in all autoimmune conditions? The science is moving fast, and the story is still being written.